Welcome to North of 60. I'm Heidi Schweighofer. I have a special guest with me today. My guest is Dr. Patricia Goetz. Patricia is running for the Ohio Senate in the 27th District, which includes Hudson. And I want you to have an opportunity in a more informal way to get to know her. Pat, thank you.
Yes. Yes, thank you for having me.
I know you've been in Hudson for a long time.
17 years.
Wow.
Yes.
That's
time
wonderful.
Time has flown.
Tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, my personal background, I actually grew up near Toledo in a little farm town of 1,200 people. And then I got there because my mother died when I was 6, and I lived in an orphanage for a year. And then I was adopted by a wonderful family that really supported my dreams. But when I went to college, we didn't have a lot of money, so I put myself through college and I put myself through medical school. So I've been one of those kind of driven, self-made kind of people.
You sure are.
And when I went to medical school, there was only 9 women in my class of 130. So it was kind of before the glass ceiling broke in medical school. In medicine itself, the powers to be are still men, but there are many more women in medicine.
Yeah.
And so I stayed in Pittsburgh, that's where my husband's from, and started my family and started to practice, but moved to the Cleveland area in 1988 into Shaker Heights. And my practice is in child and adolescent psychiatry with some adult work, but mainly that. So I've spent my whole career focusing on trying to improve things for kids and families. Nowadays, that's seniors also, because a lot of grandparents are raising grandkids because of the opioid
Are you
epidemic.
seeing that in your own practice?
Yes, everywhere. And it's just really sad. And I mean, I'm a grandparent, and you know, I love my grandkids, and if I spend a whole day with them, I'm exhausted. I can't imagine doing it full time again. You know, we're parents when we're young for a reason. So and then a lot of these children have a lot of trauma because of what's gone on with their parents, and so the grandparents have that to deal with too. A lot of anger from the kids, a lot of behavior problems. So it's really quite sad. Yeah. So I have worked in many aspects of mental health. The one that I feel most privileged about is I did an evidence-based in-home program and had the privilege of going to people's houses. And that's unusual for a doctor to do that.
Yes, it is. Like home visits.
Yes, and I was part of a team because we were trying to keep kids out of jails and out of psychiatric treatment centers. And what was so profound was how hard these people worked. Maybe 2 jobs, maybe 3 jobs, and didn't have much to show for it. And then so their kids weren't always supervised, and that's when they would get in trouble and things like that. But it was such a privilege to go and to work with them. And so it has really...
do you still do that? Is that program still around?
That program is still around. I don't do it now. The agency I was with went bankrupt, which is part of our problem in mental health, is that there isn't enough money out there. And now because I'm older, I've cut back to just 1 day a week, and so I can really devote my effort to not only this campaign, but also when elected, I can devote myself to the Senate and to this district.
Good. So you can continue with your practice, but on a very limited basis now.
Yes.
Understandably. Why are you running?
I'm running because I feel so passionate about the needs of kids and families, and I don't think that we've given them what we need, and we need to have people in our elected offices that are not politicians, that have lived a life out there, that have seen what the real world is like. And I think because I've done that, and also I'm a quick learner, I can learn much more about how things run and how to do it, that I think I can have a really big impact. I have grandkids, and I feel really strongly about, I want this world to be better for them.
Oh, I do too, Pat.
And I could just sit back and not do anything, and I decided, no, I'm going to step up and do what I can.
I'm very proud of that. You know, it's easy as we get older to stay home and take care of our grandchildren and our children and do the yard and all the things that we like to do, but I'm very proud of you for taking the initiative to do this. It's hard, isn't it?
Yes.
Tell me about City Council. I know you ran, and I know you were on the show.
I ran, and there were 3 people that were elected. I came in number 4. I lost by 185 votes.
Oh my gosh!
Out of
Slim.
there were over 7,000 people that actually voted, but since you could vote 3 times for 3 different people, so it was 185 votes out of over 20,000. So it was really
wow.
slim. Yeah.
Good.
So in some ways, it was really interesting. Met a lot of wonderful people here in Hudson. Learned a lot about campaigning. It's hard work. It's very hard work. So I didn't think I would do it again so soon, but this opportunity came up and I couldn't pass it up.
Good, good. All right. Your priorities, you said, are going to be families.
Right.
As you move forward into this race and into if you get the seat.
Probably one of the first ones is healthcare, being a physician, a doctor. You know, we started out pretty good in this state in terms of COVID and how we managed it, and then we kind of fell off. And I strongly believe in science and data. And it was frustrating to people that the science kept changing, but we didn't know anything about COVID when we first started. And so the science gradually came around. And there's been a lot, you know, for a long time, a lot of anger about the changes, a lot of attacking people like Dr. Fauci, all of which made no sense at all. And it became very politicized.
Yes.
Masks became very politicized. And it made no sense when it was to protect people. So I am really a strong advocate of good health care. For seniors, we do have Medicare. If you're not quite 65, there is Medicaid, but you have to be at a certain income level.
Right.
I would love it if the state would make it different and have anybody in that age group, because so many people in that 55 to 65 age group lose their jobs, don't have medical insurance, and it's a big problem.
And have to pay astronomical amounts every month for private insurance. I couldn't agree with you more.
So hopefully down the road, I know a lot of that is a federal thing, but there may be some things we could do on the state level. There are some things out there. There are some things with trying to help seniors retrofit their homes so that they can have wheelchair ramps and that. But generally now it again is income based as opposed to being available for anybody. Developmental disabilities has that for anybody that's in their system, that if the disabled individual needs or wheelchair ramp, they're able, if they have a waiver, able to get some monies to pay for something like that. So we need more. Now, again, some of those waivers are federal, but we need to look at how we can help serve people more
seniors
on the local level. The other issue that's been out there is safety, and you and I were talking. People aren't aware. This is one really good thing that just came out of the legislature, is that they did pass a law called Esther's Law, where now you can have a camera inside the nursing home where your loved one is, so that you can communicate by camera with your nursing home client and can also see the kind of care that they're given.
I think did that come out of a situation where someone saw a parent or a spouse being...
Yeah, I think they were doing it not legally, but they did it and saw it, and so they had that on tape, and so, and anyhow apparently it hit the papers and things like that, so that the legislators did say, you know, why not? There's no reason why you can't have that. We have cameras everywhere now, so why not? Right. And
I had not heard of that bill
Yeah.
before today. So is that is a confirmed going to
Yes,
happen
and-
thing?
and-
So I would request it for my husband.
and you do have to work with them because a lot of the nursing homes still aren't aware of it yet.
Okay.
So you do have to, and if you have a problem with them, you can call somebody at the state. I had talked with the state senator, Nikki Antonio, out of Lakewood, and she's the one that told me about this bill. So she would be
Okay.
somebody people could contact to find out
Pat,
about it.
That's good to know. That is a good thing for any of our seniors to
Yeah.
know, because we never know whether something will happen and somebody needs a nursing home, rehab, something fast.
Yeah. The other thing we talked about a bit was there's a statistic I found that a third of adults are doing caregiving for their family members.
Been there, done that.
I had an instance. My husband had ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. He passed away 13 years ago. And the last year of his life was very difficult. It's a
Sure.
hard disease. It requires a lot of things that you have to do. It was hard to even find people, pay people to do it. And it was exhausting. It was not only emotionally, it was physically exhausting. And the thing that saved me was the ALS Society did have a support group. You had talked about Alzheimer's in your family. There's no funds to support. A lot of the individuals that are doing this are low-income people that they need to work, and yet they need to help their loved ones, and they can't get ways to support it. So we have to figure out how to do that. And I don't know the ins and outs of it, but we have to do something about that.
Home health is extraordinarily expensive if one is paying out of pocket. And I think most people think that Medicare and their supplemental or their Medicare Advantage plan will pay for all of it. It doesn't. It has a limit. And I couldn't agree with you
Yeah.
more. It's very difficult to maneuver that. Who do we get? Do we have the money? How often do they come?
Yeah.
One of the hardest things I've done in my life was take care of my parents with my sister.
Now there are now a number of physician groups, usually it's nurse practitioners, that will go to the homes. SUMA does it, Cleveland Clinic. You have to have a certain level of medical necessity. So if somebody has COPD and they can barely move or get out of the house, they may be able to come to the house. It's supposed to be covered, but you have to look into that and to see how much. We need more of that.
And we need day-to-day help.
And we need
the getting on and off the toilet, in and out of a wheelchair, in and out of bed, at the kitchen table.
showering them.
Showering.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
we did all of that, and we're
Yeah.
not spring chickens.
Right.
So, yeah.
And people like you and I, we could get some help, but like I said, the low-income folks out there can't.
I know.
And yet we don't have a system in place, and we're just getting older,
Yeah.
and we're getting sicker as we get older, and we
Yeah.
have to figure that out.
Yes, we do.
And I know that's expensive and that costs money, but we have to figure it out somehow.
I think seniors are often, I hear the word invisible, and I do think that there is still in the minds of many leaders in this country, seniors are a little bit on the invisible side.
But they're the voters, so.
Yes, and we do the research and we find out
Right.
what's going on and we watch the news. And
Yeah.
I want to ask you about something that is.
Before that,
Okay.
one last issue that I think is important here in Hudson. It's the issue of how to tackle loneliness for seniors. They found that seniors there's much more loneliness, and that in turn becomes depression. It can also cause cognitive decline. And one of the best way to combat loneliness is to have senior centers. We don't have one here in Hudson. Most cities either have a levy for a senior center, or it's part of the recreation department. It's a struggle here in Hudson because our rec department's part of the schools. So it's part of our park department, but our park department is just really about the grass parks. So we need to come up with not only a place for it, but also in order for it to work well, you need to have a part-time coordinator. And that costs money again. if I'm elected, I'd work very hard to see if we could find some grants that could support someone like that. Because we desperately need it here. Even though we have Laurel Lake and we have all these other places, there's a lot of seniors that aren't in those communities that don't have access to all those things.
I'm part of the Hudson Senior Network, and we offer twice a month activities or events or presentations for seniors. And we were just meeting last night, and we talked about not only are we seeing new faces, which makes me incredibly happy, but we are getting to a point where we do need to start looking at a central coordination. Can we find a person? I think we can. I have an idea. And can we then start centralizing senior activities in town? Maybe we'd end up someday being able to offer things like snow plowing or transportation with grants. So I just pray that it happens. I pray it happens.
One interesting thing you could look at, I found out about it up in Cleveland. They have a program for, it's basically for lawn mowing and leaves, but it's an organization, and they tie in with the Boy Scouts. And they do it for free for seniors.
Really?
Yes.
Give me, when we're all done, give me that information. Okay. I would love to take it back to my committee.
So they're different. There are different kind of volunteer things around
that we can try
that you could look at.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the state, now I want to talk about one of the things that is incredibly confusing to me, and every time I hear it on the radio, I just try to, ignore it. And that is this whole mapping, redistricting thing that's happening nationwide. But what is going on in Ohio? Tell me about it and why.
Well, they have had 4 different maps. They've had multiple sessions, even brought in outside map makers, which then they didn't use any of the maps that they made and spent an enormous amount of money on it.
I'm sorry. I love politics, boy.
So currently, the Ohio Supreme Court has said all these maps are unconstitutional based on the constitutional amendment we all voted for. But a group appealed to the federal court who said, well, if you can't get your act together by May 28th, we will go with the 3rd unconstitutional map. And
why pick the 3rd one?
I'm not sure. The 3rd and the 4th were pretty much the same. The 4th was tweaked just a little bit. And so the redistricting commission have only met for like an hour, and they did nothing by the deadline last week, and they didn't put anything else in. And so they're not meeting, and so there's not going to be any more maps. And so we think that at this point they're going to go with the 3rd map, which means it would last only for 2 years. So we'll have to go through all this all over again.
So oh goody.
Yes.
So is it relatively arbitrary? What was the point? Was it to change red and blue lines? It
was supposed to be more fair based on how things have been voted on in this state. So it would be 54% people vote Republican and 46% Democrat. So that there should be the representatives in the Senate should reflect that instead of the way it is now, which is a super majority for the Republicans. So in this map, the 3rd, it kind of looks like that, except there are numerous Democratic ones that they're saying are, quote, Democratic, but they're actually up for grabs. And the Republicans don't really have many that of their own that are up for grabs. So it's still fairly unfair, and that's what the Supreme Court felt. But because they couldn't come to any understanding, where we probably went wrong as a state, we should have modeled it the way they've done it in Pennsylvania, is that it was a independent group that was not made up of politicians.
Yes.
But for some reason, they did not have that as part of the constitutional amendment. So we might have to go back and do that all over
So
again.
this could keep going on and on and on and on.
And right now it was.
And wouldn't it, I mean, I can see
and
it
if the
changing
state-
depending on
and-
the majority party that's in 2
and if-
years.
And if the Supreme Court is a particular way, one way or the other, like right now it was really 5 Republicans and 4 Democrats, but the Maureen O'Connor, who's a
Yes.
Republican, she sided every time with the Democrats, saying that it was unconstitutional. So if she hadn't been there, none of this, we'd still have the old districts probably.
How does it affect you, Patricia?
It affects me. Actually, our district isn't bad. The District 27 used to be a very gerrymandered district of Wayne, Holmes, and then just upper Summit County. Now it's all Summit County except part of central Akron. So it's
Except or in
Ex-
addition?
I only have 13 precincts in Akron. The rest of Akron belongs to Senator Sykes.
Okay, how odd.
Yes, and his district, he's not running this year because they stagger. So that district is going to be really weird because it's Akron, Portage, and part of Geauga County. So you talk about a strange district.
Yeah.
But this will be Hudson, Cuyahoga Falls, Twinsburg, Macedonia, Richfield, Fairlawn, Copley, Barberton, Greene, and 14 districts, 14 precincts of Akron. And Stowe. But no Monroe Falls, no Talmadge. That'll be in the other district.
Okay.
So it is a more positive district for a Democrat.
Yeah. Okay. And that will be it now for depending
least-
on what happens.
Yeah, for
it
at least
should be 2 years.
2 years. Yeah.
Okay.
And the same way the state representatives, Casey Weinstein, his has been changed a bit, but it's Hudson, Cuyahoga Falls, and kind of all that Twinsburg, the same kind of area.
I think this has truly been one of the most confusing things I've ever tried to understand.
Yeah. Well, it's been terrible as a new candidate.
Oh, I can
It's been hard to
imagine.
fundraise. It's been hard to even start knocking on doors. I'm starting at Hudson because at least I'm pretty positive Hudson's in it. There was even a worry. There was one map that was done by a California map maker that actually would have had us in Senator Sykes' district. So I wouldn't have even been able to run.
Oh my gosh.
But they didn't even want to consider his maps because they were pretty fair.
So May 28th, you are free to go.
Well,
basically.
we probably won't know for sure to sometime till the first week in June.
In June.
But
Okay.
I'm going as if it's the
It's
third
gonna-
map, and I'm going full force. I'm not going to wait
Good
any
for
longer.
you.
I'm not going to wait any longer.
I
I've
wouldn't
had
either.
it.
Can we talk about some current issues here in Ohio? One of them is, of course, every bit of news is about the Supreme Court leak on Roe, and now I think there are so many many women and their partners, and they're concerned about our reproductive choices and what's going to happen. And I know that I keep hearing about trigger bills that are ready to go. I know in Ohio we have something called the heartbeat bill, which I know a little bit about. I know it makes no allowances for a woman who's been raped or had a incest relationship. It's not a relationship when it's incest, but talk about your feelings about this and what's going on.
It's so puzzling that we in this country are talking about taking away one of our rights.
I know.
And it's just kind of astounding. And I see this as reproductive choice. And that's very broad. It's whether it's contraception, it's whether it's abortion, it's whether even in some states they're not going to allow teenagers to even talk to a physician about sexual information unless their parents are sitting right there. And we all know what teenagers are like, and they need to have that information, but they won't do it in front of their parents. And that's been kind of a law in medicine for years, that they had that right, and they want to take that right away from the teens. And
think of where that's going to potentially lead.
Yeah.
Then the teen, is not going to want to let mom and dad know, so then
they won't get any care.
They will get no
any
care,
education.
and then abortion would be illegal. And what happens?
Well, we know what happened back in the
I know.
50s and 60s, that there was a lot of illegal. It's not clear if the court is going to say that constitutionally you can't have abortion anywhere. There was some thought that might happen, but it sounds like from what
Some
was written,
states are going to allow it.
and I've been reading that there are some states that allow it, and in states where they don't allow it, that there are volunteers that are going to be willing to drive people places for the abortion. Amazon has said that it will spend $4,000 for any of its employees who live in a state where abortion is banned, to have them be able to go get one in another state. Uber and Lyft has said that they will pay for any kind of legal fees if they are charged. Like in Mississippi, I think if you drive them somewhere, you can be charged. Or Texas, it is
criminal.
Yeah, and I know physicians are really concerned, because it's not only lose your license, it's going to jail for life. And then some of the things they're talking about, I think they just don't understand medically. Like an ectopic pregnancy isn't a pregnancy that's gonna work, because it's in the tube that's not big enough. And if you don't go in and take that out, you could die.
Yeah.
But some places are saying that's not going to be allowed. Or if you have a spontaneous miscarriage and need a D&C, that's not going to be allowed, and you could die then. So there's a lot of unintended consequences that they have not thought out, because they're not in the medical field. And I respect that there are people that are very much against this, and they have a different view. So, I respect that. But I also respect that almost 70% of the people in this country respect reproductive choice.
And respect the fact that it's a woman's choice.
Yeah.
It is her choice.
Yeah.
It's not Senator Smith. Yeah. The heartbeat bill, is that a trigger bill? Is that going to go?
It is.
And it's at 6 weeks.
I think it
most
is.
people don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I have to say
and actually
something.
there isn't. There's a sound, but it's not really a heartbeat. But.
Right. This is a very important, just terrible issue for me. When I was in high school, my boyfriend's abortion was illegal. My boyfriend's sister was 17 years old and terrified to tell her parents. So she went to the only state where she could go, and it was California. And she waited until she had to get one. I mean, she was, I want to say that she was certainly over 15 weeks. And she went to and had an illegal and horrible botched abortion, not from a physician. And he perforated her uterus, and she bled out, and she was absolutely in a coma until the parents said to let her go. And I will never, ever forget that, because I just felt like, what are we doing to girls and women?
Yeah.
Why would we make that decision that she couldn't get the care she needed legally and carefully and medically? So
the other
it's
thing
just
that doesn't make sense is that it seems like it's authoritarian governments that are leading the cause on no reproductive choice, and all the other governments are opening it up, like even Ireland.
Ireland,
Yeah.
I know.
So it's just so confusing. Like, why?
Why are we going back in time to, you know, the 50s? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It scares me to death. But now let's move on to another
another topic here.
It's going to also making me nuts, and that is House Bill 616, which is fashioned after the Florida Don't Say Gay bill. And I know that this is no sexual orientation or any gender identity information or discussion or anything. Can't mention the words until at least fourth grade. So what's happening there, and
well, I
why?
think it's also kind of talking about racial.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah, I'm sure.
At least that's what I've been told. I've not actually read it word for word what it's like, but you know, especially for schools, what it's doing is it's taking away local choice, and none of us want that. We should make our own choice.
We elect our school board, right?
So there's first off there's that, and then there's second off is like, how fair is this? You know, these are individuals that are struggling. These are individuals that feel different, and we know that kids struggle when they feel different, and need a lot of support around that. What happens in a lot of schools where their bullying does occur, it's because all the kids want to be exactly alike, and so when you're different, you're
a target.
A target.
Yep.
And so as adults, we need to protect those children. So if you'd prefer to think of this as a bullying prevention program, that's what we need. We don't need this. We need on our local level how to protect these children, how not to make them targets. And that's exactly what this bill would do. But I know all of us seniors have fought long and hard to have more control on local level. We're supposed to have, in our Constitution, more local control.
Right.
But it seems like that's happening less and less.
I know. I know.
And so I've been told, again, by the people that are actually in the legislature right now, this will probably not happen this year, but it will probably certainly come up again. But you never know. It almost seems like we're trying to out Florida here. And I don't know why. We're a different state. We're good people. We've always taken care of our people. I can't tell you how many people from other states talk about how wonderful Ohioans are.
Very welcoming, usually.
Yes,
I agree.
And this isn't a welcoming thing at all.
No, I agree. I agree with you. I've loved Hudson. I've loved living here. I loved raising my daughter here, and I still love it. I love doing and being active in the senior community now. But
you know, a great example was how Hudson stood up for the library. Again, local control. We want the library to make its own decisions. We don't want people coming in and saying that these books have to be banned. So again, I think that shows how much Hudson wants to have the freedoms that we've had.
That's right. Well, Pat, is there anything else that you can think of that you want to say to not just seniors, because I'd like to believe that maybe one person under the age of 60 watches the show, but is there any last thing you want to say about what's going on and your willingness to tackle it, I think?
I suppose two things. One, we got to figure out a better school funding so that we don't depend so much on property
taxes. Yeah.
But it will always be 49%. That's the way, unless we change that in the law, which could be changed. But we have to make it more fair. And then the second piece is for the grandparents raising grandchildren. They actually did pass something where you can get a little bit of money. It's not very much, $10 a day for 9 months when you raise your grandkids. But if you want more money than that, you've got to become a certified foster parent, which...
If there's anyone who wants to I'll tell you what we'll do. At the end of this show, I'd like to have people able to get more information about you, and maybe you can give the folks here the information about where they could contact whatever agency is doing the $10 a day. $10 a day is something,
Yeah.
Pat, better than nothing.
Yeah, I didn't know that existed till I was reading some things about it. I don't have it offhand where I read it, but I will
That's
get
all
it
right.
to
We'll
you.
get
Yeah.
we'll get it out
Yeah.
there. I sure appreciate you being here.
I-
I'm
to
very
come.
very hopeful. Thank you so much for watching North of 60 and my guest, Dr. Patricia Goetz, running for Ohio Senate in the 27th District. At the end of this show, if you stay tuned, you'll see information about her, and you can find out more about Dr. Goetz. You can email me. My email is always on there. And Patricia, well, I'm so used to calling her Pat. I've known her a while. And Patricia will get us information about the $10 a day for 9 months that you may be eligible for if you're raising grandchildren. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good rest of your day.